The Bible records in Matthew chapter 19 from verse 3 that one day the Pharisees came to test Jesus and they asked him a question. Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any and every reason? This was by no means an easy question. And regardless of the response that Jesus gave to the Pharisees, this is still one of the most frequently asked questions about marriage up to today. One of the problems we have regarding this is that different preachers and religious leaders give different views about this matter. One says this and another says that. And consequently, we have a number of people who fear getting married because they are not sure about what they will do in case they discover that the choice they made for a marriage partner was wrong. We read in that chapter that in response to the question that the Pharisees asked, Jesus said this: "Haven't you read that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female, and said, for this reason, a man will leave his own father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So, they are no longer two, but one. Therefore, what God has joined together, let man not separate." I'm sure those of us who attend Christian wedding ceremonies must be familiar with the above words. Having read these words, I noticed that there was an important principle highlighted in Jesus' response, which is worth paying attention to, especially in this day when our country, Uganda, is under fire from the Western world for passing the anti-homosexuality law. We see in the above verse, Jesus reminding his examiners, the Pharisees, that in the beginning, the Creator made them male and female. And because he made them male and female, a man will leave his parents and be joined to his wife. In other words, if God had created human beings as male only, there would be no reason for a man to leave his parents, and God in his wisdom would have devised other means of reproduction. But because he created them male and female, we have no other viable option. A man has to leave his parents and be joined to his wife, in which case we say marriage has happened. And it is in the context of marriage that reproduction is expected to take place, other factors held constant. Leaving that aside, it is clear that Jesus' response to the divorce question suggests that it is not lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any and every reason. That's why our priests tell us when conducting weddings in church that once a man and woman get married, they have to stick together no matter what happens until death separates them. Because what God has joined together, no man should put asunder. But the question is, does that teaching help in solving the marriage conundrum? There is no doubt that the Pharisees were very smart guys and that they knew the scriptures inside out. So they asked Jesus a further question. Why then did Moses command that a man give his wife a certificate of divorce and send her away? In other words, if you are saying that divorce is not allowed or is not lawful, why do we read in the scriptures about Moses, who we trust to have been well versed with the law, indicating that a man can give a certificate of divorce to his wife if he marries a woman and the woman becomes displeasing to him. I'm sure there are many men, even now, who are simply putting up with difficult women who they consider displeasing and would have divorced them if they had not been told that God hates divorce. Doesn't this question posed by experts in the law then come as good news to such men? I don't know. Just in case you doubt whether such words are in the Bible, turn to Deuteronomy chapter 24 verses 1 to 4, where it says, "If a man marries a woman who becomes displeasing to him because he finds something indecent about her, and he writes her a certificate of divorce, gives it to her, and sends her away from his house, and if she leaves and becomes the wife of another man, and her second husband dislikes her and writes her a certificate of divorce, gives it to her, and sends her from his house, or he dies, then her first husband, who divorced her, is not allowed to marry her again after she has been defiled. That would be detestable in the eyes of the Lord." What we see here is that it is possible to marry a woman and that woman becomes displeasing to you because you have found something indecent about her. If that happens, according to this portion of scripture, you can give her a certificate of divorce and send her away. I think it is also possible for a woman to marry a man and the man becomes displeasing to her because she finds something indecent about the husband. However, we are not told whether the woman can also write a certificate of divorce and give it to the man and send him away. I wonder what advice we can give to the women in that case. Interestingly, I have never heard these words read at Christian wedding ceremonies. I don't know why. What I have heard is that God hates divorce. These are the words being told to the newlywed couples. That what God has put together, no man should put asunder, and that regardless of what happens in marriage, the two must stick together until death separates them. However, in spite of all this, the media is crowded with reports about marriages breaking down and divorce courts being busy. It seems that soon the rate at which marriages are breaking down may exceed the rate at which couples are getting wedded, if it has not happened already. No wonder it is said that marriage is like a cage. One sees the birds outside desperate to get in, and those inside equally desperate to get out. So, has religion failed? I ask. We read in Matthew chapter 19, verse 8, that when Jesus was asked why Moses had commanded that an indecent woman be given a certificate of divorce and be sent away, Jesus gave this answer, and I quote, "Moses permitted you to divorce your wives because your hearts were hard, but it was not this way from the beginning." That is quite interesting. Jesus indicates that in the beginning, when things were okay and men's hearts were not hard, hence there was no need to divorce. There was no need to separate what God had put together. But things changed, and men's hearts became hardened, and new problems arose that demanded new solutions. So, I don't understand why the preachers keep advising that couples should stay together until death separates them, when it is clear that we have no shortage of men whose hearts are hard. And I think we also have women whose hearts are hard. So this reminds me of what Jesus taught in Matthew chapter 9, verse 16 to 17, when he said, "No one sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, for the patch will pull away from the garment, making the tear worse. Neither do men pour new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the skins will burst, the wine will run out, and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins, and both are preserved." So according to Deuteronomy chapter 24, Moses assessed the new reality and applied new commands, which is comparable to pouring new wine into new wineskins. But our preachers seem not to be that wise. They seem to be blind to the fact that things have changed and the old wineskins can no longer work. And so they keep prescribing old rules for every marriage, which doesn't work. In my view, there is no need for separation or divorce for those couples whose hearts are not hardened. But for those whose hearts are hardened, unless you want to witness bloodshed, they should not be forced to remain together, in my view. In Matthew chapter 19, verse 9, Jesus said this, and I quote, "I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, except for marital unfaithfulness, and marries another woman, commits adultery." End of quote. This seems to suggest that if your wife becomes unfaithful in marriage, you can divorce her and marry another woman. And in that case, you have not committed adultery. But if you divorce her for other reasons, you are not supposed to marry another. I have, however, heard some preachers say that the only reason one can divorce his wife is marital unfaithfulness. I don't know what they think about death threats that can also come up during a marriage relationship. Can't they be a basis for divorce also? I'm asking. The way I understand what Jesus says here is that you can divorce your wife for other reasons apart from marital unfaithfulness. Only that in those cases, you are not allowed to marry another woman. So if you think you will divorce for any reason and marry again, please be careful. You may end up in hell because of committing adultery. No wonder, when the disciples heard Jesus' response, they said to him, "If this is the situation between husband and wife, it is better not to marry." Let me repeat it again. If this is the situation between husband and wife, it is better not to marry. Jesus responded to them that they were right, they were quite spot on, that it is better not to marry. However, not everyone will accept this word, but only to those to whom it has been given. And we know that regardless of the numerous troubles that married people experience, many people find it hard to remain unmarried. To make matters worse, many of our preachers and religious leaders seem to suggest that marriage is compulsory, which I don't find convincing. Some will advise you to pray and fast until you get a marriage partner, as if getting married is a precondition for one to get to heaven. Some will pray for days and nights, casting out demons that are preventing the victim from getting married. In my reading of the Bible, I have not found any verse suggesting that demons should be blamed for people's failure to get married. I think I need help here. If there is any reference, someone can point it out to me. I have come across, however, very practical portions about why it is better for one to remain unmarried. But I wonder why sermons on such portions of scripture are rare. The first one is 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 26 to 27, in which Paul says, "Because of the present crisis, I think that it is good for you to remain as you are. Are you married? Do not seek divorce. Are you unmarried? Do not look for a wife." The second portion is 1 Corinthians 7 verse 28, in which Paul says, "But if you do marry, you have not sinned. And if a virgin marries, she has not sinned. But those who marry will face many troubles in this life, and I want to spare you this." In my experience, many preachers prefer to emphasize the first portion of that verse, which talks about the sinlessness of getting married. But they carefully avoid talking about the troubles one has to face when they marry. And I have always wondered why. The third portion is 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 32 to 35, in which Paul says, "I would like you to be free from concern. An unmarried man is concerned about the Lord's affairs, how to please the Lord. But a married man is concerned with the affairs of this world, how he can please his wife, and his interests are divided." This makes me think, if the above is true, it is more difficult for a married man to enter the kingdom of heaven than it is for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle. We already know that it is hard enough for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. What do you think will be the fate of the man who is rich and is also married? Is it not better for such to remain unmarried? I'm simply asking, and I expect to receive correct answers in the new year 2024, which begins tomorrow. See you then, and God bless you.